this is such an interesting field. It's one that NVIDIA has looked at. The use of optics in GPU is also, or OPU is being looked at. Let's start with what you're offering, the actual technology itself, which we wrote about this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And yeah, we just announced our company, Mesh Optical, coming out of stealth here. We are standing up high-volume optical manufacturing of these optical interconnects that are used for all GPU clusters. So anytime you hear someone talking about a GPU cluster, there's 4 to 5 of these optical transceivers for every one GPU. And so, yeah, we're excited to offer our first product as what we call a linear pluggable optic, and it's at like a 1.6 terabit per second data rate, which is like what the state of the art will be in the coming years in all these GPU clusters.
Trav, you were at SpaceX for about 5 years. You're the laser guy, right? Working on the technology stack that helps satellites communicate, essentially. Your co-founders, also SpaceX alumni in slightly different domains. But how is that transferable to what you're doing here in the first instance with the transceivers?
Yeah, great question. And no, I was super excited to have a lot of the team that I worked with there deploying the Starlink laser mesh, and we're very proud of what we did there. And, I think about the job here every day, and it feels very similar to what I was doing at SpaceX. And, SpaceX, the space laser team was quite small and a very awesome team. And we're building the same thing here, a very small, technical oriented team with really talented individuals. And the day-to-day feels very similar. We're, building, standing up high volume production, trying to deploy as much hardware as possible, and co-locating the talent right next to the manufacturing line. And so, yeah, it feels very similar.
This is about more than the underlying technology, right? This is a field where the supply chain is dominated by China. And so one of your ambitions is to exceed that, bring capacity to the United States, and you've put a timeline of 2027 on that. This is a big debut funding round, but what's the roadmap from here? You're going to need more capital. What are your priorities?
Yeah, our priority is to build as many optical interconnects as possible and deploy as many of those as we can. So for the immediate term, it's getting to high volume of this first device we're making, while at the same time planning for our long-term ambitions of doing space-based laser communication and eventually one day propelling spacecraft with photons.
Right. So explain that distinction, right? In the first instance, who's the customer? Data center on Earth. And then in the future, there is a distinction on this happening in space.
Yeah. So first customer, we got to help the U.S. deploy this compute on the ground as fast as possible. And there's a big vulnerability in the supply chain with regards to optics and the way those optics are assembled and manufactured all overseas. And standing up a secure supply chain outside of, Asia and China specifically really helps us leverage our product into all of these data centers on the ground. And when we show how much volume we can do on the ground, it's, then we have to start pushing that volume to space, and we'll be the ones strategically set up to do that.
Just real quick on Thrive Capital, a big day for them. They're leading you around. Why is it important that they are backing you?
Yeah, they, from the beginning, have just been ready to go with us and deploy quickly. And, our goal is to stand up this volume production as fast as possible. And they were also willing to work as fast as possible with us. And we really appreciate them backing the founder and also wanting to accelerate.
From the time that you were at SpaceX, clearly the bigger vision has changed. Right now, space-based data center, that's what we're going towards. Do you expect to work with your old company and with Elon Musk to try and pitch the technology back into them?
I'd always love to keep working with them and help. I just want to help connect as much compute and send probes to deep space as much as possible, and whoever we can work with on that, I'm very excited to do that. And connecting everything from the ground to space, it's going to need to transition to optical because RF reaches a limit, and optical photons are much more efficient and power efficient. And the constraints on the ground are power, and the constraints in space are also power. And so it leads very well for what we're making here.